Hello, everyone. Today we have a very special guest with us. We have Miss Ankita Dhakar, who is founder of Capture the Bug and Security Lit. And I must say, she's one of those young Indian entrepreneurs who have established herself quite successfully within New Zealand. So it's our pleasure for you to be on Cyber Unbound's podcast, Miss Ankita. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Shikar. Pleasure is all mine.
So, Miss Ankita, let's start your journey from when you started within New Zealand. So, you came to New Zealand for the first time to study business administration. So, what made you fell in love with this country so much that you decided to pursue your career within New Zealand in comparison to India or probably some other country?
I think, I actually didn't sit down one day and said that I'm going to build a cybersecurity company in New Zealand. As you know, that I've come to study here. So when I completed my study, I was looking for opportunities, and even though in India, the market is very vibrant, it can also feel personally a bit crowded and hierarchical as well. And in New Zealand, the focus, I think the sweet spot was that the it's small enough that you can get in the room with the decision makers pretty quickly, I would say. And but it also at the same time gives you that platform to be also prove yourself globally. The other thing that we did that I did that made me choose New Zealand was that it has also a very deep trust culture. So when someone here vouches for you, so for example, if someone said, well, I've worked with Ankita, she's really good, people do respect that. And in security, that matters a lot because you're not just selling a product, you're actually asking people to trust you with their skeletons. So I think that's why that was one of the reasons that I chose New Zealand as a country. And think, and also from my lens, New Zealand is a mix of a few things. Because I'm from cybersecurity, so I'm including that. But the cybersecurity here is catching up very, very fast, and also an entrepreneurial ecosystem that's very collaborative. The social culture here is very community driven and also humble, which I appreciate a lot. And again, I think as you just said, compared to bigger regions like US or India, New Zealand doesn't have an army of cybersecurity startups yet. Like we're still a very few companies that are trying to do something different in New Zealand, but the ones that do exist, they tend to be high quality and close to their customers. So you get to work with the customers one on one, and so that is a very different experience that I've had in New Zealand. So it's not just one reason, but a lot of the reasons that I chose to be here and call it my home.
So, it's quite interesting to hear how you've had mixed of experiences within New Zealand. I mean,
Yeah.
hearing you, it makes me feel like that I should visit New Zealand soon to
Oh yeah, I'd
experience.
love to. I'd love to host you anytime.
Sure.
I'm actually getting people to get interested in New Zealand so I can show them around.
I think you're one of those entrepreneurs who is probably one of the Indian ambassadors who is just trying to promote entrepreneurship and trying to invite more Indians to come to New Zealand and set up their businesses. Right.
Absolutely. And it's
So,
it's such a very um easy country to do business. I mean, the rules and regulations are very startup friendly, that if anyone wants to try entrepreneurship, I would definitely highly recommend them to, visit New Zealand and give it a try.
perfect. Let's move into your startup a bit. So, you're founder of Capture the Bug and Security Lit. When you started Capture the Bug, what fundamental gaps did you see in the market at that time within red teaming, penetration testing, especially when there were so many startups already existing in the space of penetration testing and offering threat intelligence and red teaming as a service?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I honestly, the gap was simple, pen testing, and it still feels like a very one-off compliance chore, but we both know that attackers are not working annually, right? So when I looked at the traditional red teaming or pen testing engagement model, I saw that there are long sales cycles. These are very time consuming, expensive engagements. Reports are always landing in PDFs. So all that traditional stuff, and also very the it still is very little ongoing, collaborative, real timing, and it doesn't support the modern engineering teams as much as it should be. So we're very much still stuck in 2010 or 2012, and I think at Capture the Bug we wanted to treat pen testing like a product and not just a service, and not an event, for that matter. We wanted this to be an ongoing thing, making it, developer friendly, transparent, and not here's your report and we go away and you let us know when we come back and do your retesting kind of stuff. And I think with Security Lid, I, as a founder, launched my first business, which was Security Lid. So I think the focus for that company has always been to support SMEs and small startups. And the focus was always been about treating every customer with a lot of love and support when it comes to helping them understand a particular vulnerability. So it has helped, but 2 years ago when we were delivering a pen test report here in New Zealand, with a company that's based in Auckland, the CTO came back to me and said, this is great, but how sure you are that you've gotten all the vulnerabilities in our system? And we know that the systems are changing pretty much on a regular basis, and that I'm a very inquisitive person. So that question stuck with me, and I was like, how can we make this, like a part of their development life cycle? So from there, I interviewed, I guess, 43 CTOs across Australia and New Zealand, and I found out that there's a massive gap in the industry. And 2 years ago, we launched a very crappy, shit-looking product into the market that has changed a lot. But yeah, that's how we started, and thanks to that conversation that I've had with people who actually helped me shape the vision of Capture the Bug that we have today.
So, you mentioned couple of things about capture the bug and red teaming space. So there is definitely a gap within penetration testing and red teaming. I've spoken to a lot of founders, and they've always mentioned that how speed is one of the biggest challenges within penetration testing. And I think that's what you also mentioned about how reports are always delayed. They're always in PDF formats. There's a lot
Mhm.
of problems with CISOs faces in understanding what these reports mean when probably discussing it with the board. Now, because there are so many AI powered pen testing tools which are emerging, there are a lot of risk quantification platforms which are emerging.
Mhm.
Where do you see capture the bug in comparison to these tools and platforms? And why do CISOs still prefer to choose capture the bug over these platforms?
I think, Shikhar, I see AI tools, and risk quant platforms as amplifiers and not replacements, right? So tool only solutions, they are great at breadth, scanning a lot of assets, doing, say, pattern based detection, giving dashboards. But companies don't just need more findings. At the end of the day, they need prioritized, validated, contextualized findings that engineering teams can actually act on. So they don't need a list of 100 vulnerabilities that AI can definitely do that. But what they really want is those 5 vulnerabilities that they want to take action on, right? So I think Capture the Bug sits at the intersection. We use automation, definitely, and AI where it makes sense. But the core value is very human led, context aware, offensive testing that plugs into your dev and security workflows. And I think CISOs, are choosing us. CISOs, CTOs, head of engineering, all of these amazing humans are choosing us because we don't stop at, here's a dashboard. Because, we are at the age of vibe coding. We can spin a dashboard pretty much in 2 hours these days, but we help them answer uh, things like what should we fix first? What's actually exploitable in our environment, and how do we make sure that this doesn't this particular vulnerability doesn't pop up again, say in the next quarter? So these are the things that helps us different. And I don't think I'm not against AI, but I still feel that there still needs to be some balance, and I think that's what we're doing. um,
Got it. So you mentioned about how different you are and your perspective on AI pen testing tools. In your journey of building Capture the Bug, do you think there are avenues where you might just make bug bounty hunters and individual hunters redundant, or do you think there's a big opportunity for bug bounty hunters to maybe collaborate with your platform and deliver value to your customers even more?
um, Again, a very good question. I honestly, I don't think that bug bounty hunters are redundant. Um, I think they just occupy a very different lane. So agile, or continuous pen testing, as we offer, is structured, scoped engagements, timelines, objectives, and a tight feedback with engineering teams. It's designed for predictability, but there has to be alignment with product roadmaps. And bug bounties are more open ended, very chaotic by design, which can actually be brilliant diverse researchers from around the world bring different perspectives and creativity. But for many customers, the best model is actually hybrid. So they don't have to choose between one or the other. So for example, use something like capture the bug for, what I mentioned was around that structured way of doing things, ongoing offensive security work, and then layer bug bounty or VDPs for that matter, for extra eyes and creativity on top of that. So no, I don't think I would want to kill bug bounty. I think what I'm trying to say is I would want to make sure companies are using both. And what I mean by that, use it in a way that actually fits their maturity goals. Because for a startup, bug bounty might not make sense, or even doing pen testing 4 times a year may not make sense. But if we're talking to a, I don't know, like 100 people team, and all of a sudden both of these things becomes very relevant. So yeah, that would be my take on that.
Understood. So you mentioned about how you moved to New Zealand, how you shaped your product for Capture the Bug, how on day zero your product wasn't that great, and how you have evolved from since then, and made this a production level product for CISOs to use for their companies. What initial obstacles did you face while building in New Zealand and while building or scaling your startup?
I think there are, well, I think the struggles and obstacles would be different. It depends on where you're doing that, but I will talk about my journey. So I think because I wasn't born here, I didn't go to school here. So um, I didn't have a lot of the connections that people would generally like. If I was to build a cybersecurity startup in India, I might have had more support in that country than here. So I think there are a few big ones that I can talk about today, which is definitely trust and credibility. So being a founder of a cybersecurity company, um, we're asking people to break their systems. So we tackled this by going deep with our early customers. So um, first of all, getting the customer was a lot of problems, but I think what made us simpler was that once we got the first customer, we use that case study or that example to win the next one. And I think case studies, word of mouth, and have been a huge hit for us. I think also New Zealand as a country is very small. So from day one, I was thinking not just New Zealand, but how can we make it Australia, New Zealand? How can we reach to customers in the US? How can we go target India, and that meant we're dealing with three and sometimes four different time zones. So that was definitely an obstacle when you're juggling with so many things, when you don't come from a traditional cybersecurity background, so you're learning as well. There's so many things that are happening, and I think um, the talent was the other one. So talent in cybersecurity is quite niche in in every country, I would say. And instead of only looking at CVs, we started focusing on mindset, and we still are. That's how we recruit even today. We look at hands-on skills and alignment with our way of working. Some of our best people don't come from that perfect looking background on paper, and then I think the things with compliance as a startup, when we were working with, for even when we were targeting enterprise size customers, they would give us a long list of questions. You have to comply with those. So it wasn't like, yes, you're dealing with a lot of not just company level issues, but also as a person, where you come from. There are not many that look like you. They don't, you don't see people who are doing this who are like you. So there was no role model. So you're doing everything on your own. You're failing, and then you're learning from your own mistakes. So I can talk about my struggles and obstacles whole day today, but I think these would be the few ones that I could tie back to the company, I guess.
Right. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs face early challenges, but I think you faced a lot more than them because you moved to a country where you had no connection, you had no establishment, and you have built yourself over the years within a country where you do not originate from. So I think that's a big achievement for any entrepreneur who is moving to a completely new country and starting their own career and startup over there, because you're an Indian female entrepreneur who is trying to build a startup in a very technical domain, which is
Mhm.
also a male dominant domain. Why do you see that there are so many fewer female entrepreneurs in cybersecurity industry?
I think it's interesting. So I think when we think about a hacker, the image of a female never comes up, right? You always say a guy um, sitting in a hoodie, and that's what you imagine. So it's just it's so hard to aspire to something you rarely see yourself represented in. And I think cybersecurity can feel like an exclusive club with its own language. Pretty much what I was struggling with when I was trying to carve my own path, building this company, because I couldn't see anyone like me doing it. Of course, there are women cybersecurity startups here in New Zealand, but every founder has their own unique journey. And as I said, when you don't have the business networks, when you don't have the connections, it just becomes very hard. And for me, it was even harder because I don't come from a formal cyber background. But I say this to people: if I can do it, I think anyone can do it. Um, but yeah, I think we were, so as a female, I think there's also a lot of bias in hiring and mentorship. So I think even if it's unconscious, people tend to mentor and promote people who look like them or behave like them. That's like a default profile that they're used to. And I think in many places, women are, they are subtly still pushed towards the safer or more kind of like stable careers. Starting as for example, for myself, starting a security company, even when I was doing that, even my family said, "Why would you start a cybersecurity company when you don't have a background in that? Like that's not something that comes to your head straight away, right?" So, um, but I did pretty much the opposite of that. So I think we don't fix this by doing a single, like a women in diversity panel in conferences, or taking daily decisions. I think if we can put thoughts into who we hire, who we promote, who we put on stage, how we treat our juniors, especially females, and how we create the culture where we are giving more opportunities to females, and even if they're juniors, that sort of things actually help in long term, rather than just creating one panel where three females or four females talks about the challenges and all goes away and do nothing.
Right. So I think you are quite an inspirational figure for a lot of female students who are trying to probably pursue a career within cybersecurity or deep tech. Now, because you have a global team and you have a team in New Zealand of penetration testers, of cybersecurity engineers, how have you supported diversity and how have you increased female representation within your own startup? And how have you built policies which could support women in cybersecurity, and what have been the learning there?
Well, I think I try, I'm also a human. I mean, I'm still learning, but what I do is I try to do it in small, but still consistent ways, rather than just one big statement. I think we'll, as I said, when we're hiring, we look beyond the classic profiles. If someone has the right mindset and potential, I'm happy to bet on them, even if the CV isn't perfect. And you will be surprised. Like, if you speak to any of the team members, they've been rejected quite a few times on technical levels. But when I've had like really one-on-one conversations with them, they just you just get to know a different personality that you can see how that person is bringing something completely different to the table, and I think that matters. I push for culture where people, especially women and juniors, can say freely say, I don't know this, or I disagree, without being shut down or labeled as emotional, which happens a lot. I think that's really, really important. And I'm really proud to say that in our company, um, we try and support our people as much as we can, even if they fail. We know that, because I know when I started this company, I made a lot of mistakes, and I needed somebody to say, hey, it's okay, you learn the third time, you do that. So I try and create that environment. And I think if there's a speaking opportunity, or like an external panel, I actively think of, is there someone in our team who I can put forward, especially women. I don't know, I don't want to be the only face in my company. So I do that, and I think outside, I was doing that quite actively in the last few years. I've not completely stopped doing that, but I only do it for few people. But outside of my company hours, I try to help women who message me on LinkedIn, or a few people who I meet at events. I try and help them by reviewing their CVs, giving them honest feedback, and just making introductions if I can, if I like the person, if I think that they can be a good value to someone, I try and do that. I think my biggest learning is that, and I'm speaking from my experience of 5 years, which may not be a lot, but diversity isn't just about hiring women. It's about building a culture where they actually have a say and want to say something. And I think I'm doing a pretty good job at doing that.
Okay. So you mentioned couple of things there. You mentioned how you support women's within your startup, how you don't want to be the only face within your startup as a female entrepreneur.
Mhm.
You also mentioned how you hire people beyond certifications. You look for quite a lot of different traits. Um, some of your teammates also got rejected on technical levels, but you still selected them because of these hidden traits which they had in them. So, what's your advice for people who don't have these costly certifications like
Mhm.
OSCP or CSSP? And what
Mhm.
can they do to get noticed by founders and recruiters like you who are trying to get into cybersecurity?
That's a very good question. I think a lot of the times people think that organizations, at least, if I'm talking about international companies, I don't think they only look at certifications. Yes, that's good if you have them, but I think what I look for is curiosity. Do you go down rabbit holes? Do you figure, like, do you enjoy figuring out things, and just trying to learn the why, and not just the what. Taking ownership, startups can't afford to to have people who just say, that's not my job, because that's not something. It's again, like, I'm not saying that you also need to identify which organization is a best fit for you. But if you're aiming to work for startups, you need to be juggling with a lot of hats. So I think in pen testing, you're not just finding vulnerabilities, you're also trying to explain the risk to humans who are not technically as good as you are, and that has to be your superpower. And I think we are literally breaking things for a living, right? So I need this person to trust their intent with the judgment that they're taking. So we need people who can, like, we don't hire people who needs to be micromanaged. We want people who can manage themselves, who are responsible, and we're also pushing them very quickly into leadership roles. And I think like, when it comes to team culture and hiring, the adaptability is also key. So we're talking about AI and the changes and the frameworks change, but if you need the world to be stable to function, it a startup won't be fun. So if someone has those traits, we can. If someone has the, I want to do this and I will do my best to give you the results, we can teach them the rest. But they have to have that attitude of, um, no, let's do it. So yeah, that's what we look for.
Understood. So you mentioned how you look for couple of traits within cybersecurity engineers or within people who want to join your team. It could be different value systems, it could be different things like curiosity. I think hiring is a very big problem both for cybersecurity engineers and founders like
Mhm.
you who are trying to hire within cybersecurity, because discovering engineers based on the skill is a very big problem.
Agree.
And there are new platforms emerging in the market which are AI powered based platforms who are trying to vet cybersecurity engineer skills on
Mhm.
behalf of companies, platforms like Cyber Unbound. So, what's your take on platforms like Cyber Unbound, which is trying to make opportunities more fair and faster within cybersecurity hiring? And do you think, what's your perspective on this evolution of hiring systems within cybersecurity? Do you think something like this could work, something like this would not work? Or if traditional hiring methods are the best, where engineers do certifications and companies hire them based on certifications.
Mm. Um, I think this is the direction that we have to move in. I think traditional hiring is biased, by school, geography, accent, even how comfortable you are in interviews, right? So I think skill-based platforms can flatten some of that, and especially if they're testing, real world scenarios instead of just MCQs. But I also think that the platforms are only as fair as the people designing them. So we shouldn't replace humans. We shouldn't replace human judgment um, with the algorithm. But for cybersecurity in particular, I love the idea of practical labs, um, and like challenge-based hiring. If platforms like Cyber Unbound can help us find great talent from non-traditional backgrounds faster, um, then yeah, why not?
Perfect. So, you mentioned about talent, you mentioned about the traits you look in them. Now, there's a big issue within hiring, which is the higher H-1B visas, which has been imposed in US. And I'm
Mhm,
sure a lot of security professionals would be looking to relocate from
mhm,
US to different parts of the world, especially New Zealand. So, what's your
mhm.
advice for these security professionals who are trying to move to different cities and countries?
Wow. I wish someone asked me this question. Um, Look, it depends on what you want. Okay, if you want very high salaries and big brand logos, you might gravitate towards the US or maybe certain parts of Middle East or Europe. But if you want a more balanced lifestyle, a tight knit ecosystem, which is community driven, and also the chance to grow quickly in responsibility. And I think for that reason, I think New Zealand is amazing. And also New Zealand is great if you're okay with being hands-on and wearing multiple hats. So the hustle and the startup culture still exist in pretty much every organization that you would work here. You will have to like closer knit teams, and you would value safety, the nature, the scenery here is amazing, and also that balance between the career and lifestyle. So I wouldn't say one is better, but if you resonate with how I just described New Zealand, which is collaborative, calm, but still very ambitious and relationship driven, then it's absolutely worth considering coming to New Zealand and exploring the city. Sorry, the country. I I don't think I would be the person that I am today if I wasn't here. I've learned to value very, very small things in life, and that is only because I've spent a lot of time in nature. I've been very grateful to things that I have, and I think that sort of thing only happens when you become part of something small. Otherwise, in bigger countries and chaotic cities, you just lose yourself somewhere.
Understood. So, I'm sure a lot after this podcast, a lot of people would consider joining Capture the Bug and Security Lit. Just for them, could you describe what's the culture working at Capture the Bug?
Well, we're still a very small and lean team, and we're a team of, Gen Zs and millennials. And in few words, I would say that we take ownership. We are very honest and low ego people. So if something is broken, we fix it. We don't play the blame game here. Like if you make a mistake, I'm not gonna say, well, you did this and because of that we lost this, right? We're just gonna you know learn from it. That's what I think. And I think whether it's with clients or internally, I'd rather have an uncomfortable truth than a comfortable lie. Um, and then uh, what else? I think what we look and then I think what we're trying to build in the team is that you can be very talented, very brilliant, and um, but you need to be still very empathetic and kind, and you know that attitude of making other people small just doesn't work here. Like if you've had a lot of certifications, you have 10 years of experience, and you're treating your 2 year experienced colleague like shit, then that's not we are not that company. We even though we are like I won't say like so I don't have a lot of experience in cyber. I've got only 7 years, right? But I'm the founder of the company. So if someone gets hired and they have 2 years of experience, I'm not gonna discourage them with their ideas, because I know when I was starting I had crazy ideas. And I think because we work across geographies and time zones, we emphasize a very um, a way of how do I say it asynchronous communication, where we try to get people um, with clarity in not just how they speak but also how they write, because I don't want to build a culture where people feel that they like there are organizations where you have to actually show to your management that you're online and you're working. We're not that kind of a company. Like we still don't have a culture where you have to log in at 9 a.m. or log off at 5 p.m. We've got like people, because we work in 4 different time zones, like we've got people in New Zealand, India, Australia, and US. Yeah. So it's really hard to for us to push them to follow that. I think we pretty much just take the ownership of our tasks and we make sure that we deliver that on time, and then that's it. We go away, we have a good laugh, and we're trying to make this a big company.
Understood. So you mentioned how collaborative and how supportive the environment is at Capture the Bug. You also mentioned something unique, that you do not come from cybersecurity background. You do
Mhm.
not have a degree in cybersecurity. You do not have any certifications within this field. You were a business administration grad, but you're still very influential within the cybersecurity field.
Mhm.
You appear in a lot of conferences. There are a lot of blogs and articles published about you. So, I mean, what steps did you take to actually establish your influence, your visibility, your credibility within cybersecurity field, despite not coming from a technical degree?
Uh, okay. I think I can talk about three things, and I'm just focusing on people. I'm assuming people who are interested in breaking into cyber, or maybe say, technical, because it would still be relevant. But um, I think if you're trying to build something in cyber or even get a job in cyber, um, show it to people. Just don't just tell, but show. Build a public trail. Maybe GitHub repos, write stuff. Play CDFs. Build a good profile on Buckroud or HackerOne or whatever that platform is. Um, Try and contribute to the local events. Try and go to speaking events. Say if you can get a speaking gig happening in regional communities. I don't care much about the university brand, because I don't have one myself. um, and then I think you should be able to tell your story very clearly, because I think if you do notice, even though I don't come from cyber, when I started my journey as a founder, what I did was I was very consistent in writing about what's happening in the industry, whether it's a big breach. I would, take that news and then try and explain it to people in a less jargony way, if that's possible. So if just try and find out what your strengths are, and I think if you're very good at explaining your story, that's something that speaks about you. People are gonna like that. Be visible in the right circles. Unfortunately, uh, if you're doing great things, you still need to be surrounded by good people who can, appreciate what you're doing. And if they like it, then they're going to talk about you in other circles that, they are going to. So engage in security communities, join Discord channels, go to local meetups, and see if there are any. There's so many online conferences as well that you can, take part in. Um, and just remember, people, if you're helping others, they're going to help you. And it's like, I still believe that, um, it's like a circle. So whatever if you're going to help someone, someone's going to help someone else. So it's like a circle, it keeps going on. Um, and I think companies like mine care a lot about uh, what you can do, like what you can actually do rather than just the degree that you have. So I think just start being more visible wherever, whatever your strength is. Try and showcase it to people, and be a little shameless, because when I started, yes, people would talk about you, but who cares? You got to believe in yourself. So keep pushing, be consistent. Try and just stick to one thing, and but make sure that you're doing it very consistently, is what I would say to people.
Understood. So you mentioned about networking, you mentioned about different things people could do for personal brand building, especially if they're
Mhm.
not coming from a traditional cybersecurity route, in order for them to build probably a company or themselves within cybersecurity. Um, you recently hosted a meetup of IIT graduates in New Zealand.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, what are some other interesting initiatives you have taken in your life for increasing your networking within New Zealand? I'm sure a lot of startup founders would be watching this podcast. So what are your tips, or I mean, how do you look at your marketing or branding strategies for positioning Capture the Bug globally, a startup coming from New Zealand built for the world?
Um, I think um, you always have something that the other person won't, right? So whether it's, where you come from, if you have studied at IIT, have a chat with another colleague. If you like, I've studied from University of Northampton. If I wanna if I know that the potential customer that I want to work with, comes from that university, or even like, I don't know, if the company has 500 employees, there has to be some mutual connection. And I'm just talking about entrepreneurship. It is not easy. And if it was easy, everybody would be doing that, right? So you have to think outside of your comfort zone. You have to do things that others are not willing to do. And that means, and if sometimes that means that you have to chase a few people, have to, like literally beg for intros, I think you will have to do that. So it's not an advice, but I think what I still believe is that you have to keep on doing things consistently, whether it's, asking your advisors for an intro. Like, for example, how you reached out to me, right? The way you wrote that message, it was hard for anyone to say no to. So invest in those things. Ask somebody who's doing great in your, if you find one person that you're connected to on LinkedIn, try and see if they can give you a meeting, and if that person is willing to give you that 20 minutes or 15 minutes of their time on that call, ask them if they can introduce to someone else. So be very specific about your asks. And I think if you're not going to ask the question, you're not going to get the answer. So I think my advice would be to start asking the right questions to the right people.
Understood. Just to shift the gears a bit, you mentioned about Capture the Bug earlier. You mentioned about how you want to position Capture the Bug's platform globally. Just to talk about that a little bit more, where do you see Capture the Bug in the AI plus security space? Um, is there something which Capture the Bug would do in the future, which would integrate AI, or will it just remain as platform as a service?
Well, we're very much, as I said, we're at the intersection of it where we want to take a very balanced approach. So we just don't want to use AI for just the sake of it. We want to make sure that even if we're using AI, is it delivering value? So one of the things that we're working on with the University of Waikato here, so we're doing a research with the university, and the head of the cybersecurity lab is actually one of the advisors and shareholders at Capture the Bug. So we're trying to automate the workflows of a junior pen tester. And with that, we're going to automatically see a lot of the times, if you're a junior pen tester or say a mid-level pen tester, a lot of the times you're still performing very low value tasks. So we're looking at ways how we can use, machine learning and AI to automate that stuff and give those frameworks to the team that we have to make sure we can what we're still using AI but trying to make it faster. But that research will actually help more organizations to pay one predictable fees, but to get continuous pen testing with that solution. But again, it's still in the research phase, and if we get successful, I'll let you know.
Got it. Can you share probably a moment or a time of you discovering a real penetration testing vulnerability within a system, or probably your platform finding a critical vulnerability in a system, which was probably quite scary or probably quite exciting for you, which you have never revealed before on any other podcast or blogs or articles?
Okay.
Was there any moment in your journey? I'm sure there would be some moment.
Well, okay, what I'll do is I'll anonymize it, obviously. So we were doing, and this was like, I think 6 or 7 months ago from now, I think we were doing an agile pen test for a SaaS company that thought it had a fairly um, lockdown environment. And during one of our cycles, because when we do continuous pen testing, we let them create programs on a monthly basis, or even like to weekly basis if that's the requirement of that company. So, during one of our cycles, one of our testers chained together a few medium issues that individually didn't look scary. It was more like a misconfigured role. Here, a leaky endpoint it was. But chained together, it turned into a full access to sensitive customer data across tenants. So the scary part wasn't just the exploit, it was how invisible it was in a if it was a traditional pen test, then this would have never been discovered the way we discovered. It would still have been a very checkbox style engagement. And because we were working closely with their engineering team over multiple sprints, we could show them the full kill chain. We helped them patch this in stages and then retest it pretty quickly. So I still remember the CISO saying, I'm both terrified and very grateful right now, because I think that's the actual way of doing pen testing. I think a lot of the times we see companies just do surface level pen testing, and what it does for the company that's paying you is that, oh, we are quite secure because look, this pen testing company hasn't found anything. Whereas with us, because we were so deep and in depth with their systems. Yeah, this was an interesting one. I wish, if we catch up sometime in person, I would love to share a bit more in detail as well.
Sure. So I think this shows why agile pen testing is a big need for a lot of companies who are in digital spaces. Um, what I mean, what's in your perspective? What's the next big thing within agile pen testing space? Is it AI or is it some other trend which you are trying to follow?
Um, I think it's definitely like, if I speak about Australia, New Zealand, and the trends that we're seeing is definitely product as a service, but also quite comprehensive the way we deliver. So, and that's why we said the way we that the kind of customers that we work with, AI is not fully gonna be a solution, but it has to be, the human mindset. It's very much required there. So I would have to still say that it's going to be a balanced approach for very good long time for us. But at the same time, we're also trying to automate a lot of the workflows that the junior pen testers follow to be able to deliver the pen testing not just fast, but also make sure that the results are good and not creating false positives.
Understood. Just to shift the gears a little bit more, I'm sure a lot of students, a lot of aspiring founders, a lot of young entrepreneurs, they follow you and they take a lot of admiration from the work which you have done within the cybersecurity space. Could you tell us more about just one moment,
Mhm.
which was the toughest point of your life, and how did you overcome it? It could be both entrepreneurial or it could be related to your startup,
Oh
or
God,
probably you moving to a new country.
it has to be. I think moving to a new country wasn't that hard. You can watch a lot of videos and whatnot. You can ask people who've been, um, if you're in a family. Well, in my family, I was not the first one to go out. I mean, in my relation, of course, but I think the toughest was definitely starting this company, and then I think there were phases where I think a lot of the people that are trying to get into entrepreneurship, or even are in the early phases of their entrepreneurial journey, I think has to be money. It has to be that tight cash flow situation. Because when I launched that company, I thought, within 3 months we're gonna get the first customer, and the problems will disappear. But I think the deals took longer than expected, and and I questioned for a very long time that what I was doing was the right, if I was the right person to lead this. And as a founder, you don't always have someone above you says that uh, you don't have anyone. It's very lonely there, right? You don't have anyone to say it's okay, this is going to work out, or it's fine, you can this can change or whatever. But I think what kept me going was the responsibility to my team and the customers that we had early on, people who had trusted me with their careers and their security. I still deeply believe that pen testing is very broken, um, and in many places and it needs to evolve. I think from from what I can remember that in my early journeys, when people there will be a lot of people who are going to pull you down and whatnot, but you need to focus on people who are there to support you, like try and find that light. And I don't know, whatever that is, whether it's spending time with your family, speaking to a friend, you need to divert your focus to people who come with that positive energy. And you will feel, as soon as you start something of your own, your friend circle would go smaller and smaller. And I think this is not something that I've shared in the past, but I only have um, one friend. So actually two friends. One is in India, and when I came here to study, I met with someone, and well, she doesn't come from tech, but she's one of my best friends. So um, you may feel that you have a lot of people who are there to support you, but when you take a very challenging step and you take leap of faith, you will see that there are not many people to pick up the phone and say, "Well, I'm here." That circle is gonna unfortunately go very small.
I mean, I got goosebumps hearing your response to this, because I think every single founder or young entrepreneur or first time founders can actually feel what you felt, because cash flows is a real problem.
Oh yeah.
Being lonely at the top, or on the journey of reaching the top, is a real problem. And especially in the starting, no one knows if they would actually succeed or if they would, because I mean, the only thing which keeps
I
one
still
going.
don't.
I mean, one thing which keeps people going is their belief system that something would actually work. So everything is based upon their experiences, their customer interviews, and their belief system. So I mean, I'm quite inspired by your journey of how you've built Capture the Bug. But moving forward, on the flip side, what was that one moment which you are really proud of, which you have never revealed before?
I think so now that, I mean, for a very long time, now that we have a few people who uh, work in different geographies, but for the longest time, because I've lived in New Zealand for more than 10 years now, I became a citizen 2 years ago. Um, I've made Hindi as the only language that we speak in. So every time, like we don't use English as the language to um to chat. Like even on Teams, like our messages are in Hindi, and it's like WhatsApp text. But now that we've got a few people in US, we've got somebody joined us in Nepal. I mean, that Nepal person's still fine because he can still understand Hindi, but maybe not that fluent. But I think this is the proudest thing, because I think it was 6 months ago I was interviewing someone and I said, can you do this? Like, can you introduce yourself in Hindi? And that person came back to me and said, well, no one has ever in my life asked me that. And I found that so interesting. Like we come from India, but we don't use our language. We're not proud of that language when we talk about our achievements and stuff. So I make sure that in our organization still we use Hindi as the only language to, I think it boosts productivity. I'm so sick of just speaking English all the time that it's something that I'm really proud of.
I think I'm really happy to see, and I can only speak on my personal views, that I've seen sometimes when people move out of India or their home country, they tend to forget roots, just to fit in into that culture, or probably, build further relationships with their clients or their team, which is based out of that country. But I'm happy to see how you have, I mean, you haven't forgotten where you come from and
Yeah.
the roots. I think that would motivate a lot of people in the industry as well.
I think
If you were
please,
20,
please don't forget who you are as a person, because that's your, like, that's your strength. If you change that, you change a lot of things. So yes, I am doing great things in a different part of the world, but I still appreciate all the values that I have and where I come from. Like that should never go away. Um, yeah, but thanks that you mentioned that.
right, I think identity is quite important. And
Mm,
once people forget where they come from, they also lose a part of their identity. But moving forward, you mentioned earlier about how you started with business administration, and you told us your journey of how you built your career and your startup in cybersecurity despite not having a digital degree.
mm.
Um, if you were 21 today in the world of AI, in the world of penetration testing, when there are so many resources for one to build a career within cybersecurity, would you take a different approach? And if you were to take a different approach, what that approach would be?
It is so interesting that you asked me this because it was so I was 21 when I came to New Zealand. Um, so what I would tell people is that um, be be a little bit crazy, okay? When you are 21, you don't have a lot to lose, okay? Um, Try and take a lot of risks. Share your learnings, do stuff like take on volunteering projects, even if it's like, if I read a LinkedIn message where a 21-year-old comes to me and said, well, I would like to shadow you for a day or two or a week, I would love to, give them that exposure. So try and do that. Reach out to people, ask questions, be curious, be inquisitive. Learn negotiating skills, because those are gonna compound over time. Um, I think with time you're going to learn a lot about yourself, but I think be less scared of not being technical enough. I think when I started, I was not technical enough, and I think that's not the only thing that you need to be worried about or think about. I think I would suggest that, and I've said this maybe multiple times, double down on your strengths. Figure out who you are as a person. What are your strengths? Partner with people who complement you, instead of trying to be everything. You can't be everything. You need to find good people who can support you, who can give you um, what you need. Like, for example, if I need something today, I don't have to learn that. I can always reach out to people who are already skilled at that. So build a mindset that collaboration is everything. I am not a very competitive person. Like, if I and I think that's why I'm doing fairly well, because I'm not competitive, which is interesting thing to say, because I have a very collaborative mindset. So if tomorrow, if you're a founder of a company that's also selling pen testing and you reach out to me and said, let's figure out ways how we can, collaborate, it's a very big market. I'm not gonna just work with everyone. So if there are ways for me to help you, and if there are ways for you to help me, I would love to do that. So just think a little differently, because people are going to appreciate that. If you have that small mindset where you're only thinking about how am I going to earn money, how am I going to get this or that, then you're only thinking about yourself. You need to be able to think about the other person. How can you give value to that person? How can that person build something from what you have given them? So think about those things. I think there's so much I would be sharing with a 21-year-old today, whether it's me or someone else. I think just do it. Be a little. Uh, don't take life too seriously. Just take risks.
Got it. Actually, I'm 21 right now, so
Oh
I
wow.
would I would actually take your advices, treating my competition as my collaborators. You mentioned a very cool thing that you would offer opportunities to students who want to probably shadow you or probably do, some sort of internship with you. I think this is a very cool thing because, I mean, especially with young founders, that they were not long ago students themselves.
Yeah.
And they have seen the struggles of being a student, and they want to offer opportunities. I'm sure a lot of startup founders would be watching this podcast. So what is one advice which you would give to students who are watching this podcast, as well as young founders who are trying to build cybersecurity focused startups? Or probably one advice to even to your competitors who are
I
trying to probably start a penetration testing business.
well, I think I would, if you want to build a startup, whether it's in cyber or anything else, I would say, if you have an idea, talk to your like your end user, talk to your users. Don't think about the bigger picture. Start from small. So ship something small. As I said, 2 years ago, we literally, when I was doing, I still remember, I it was just me and one of my colleagues. We went to a very big enterprise, and we literally were showing them the Figma designs. It's not about the product; it's the conviction that you have as a founder and what value can you bring to the table. So talk to your users, listen to their problems, uh, take as many interviews as possible. Don't think about just launching the product. Think about the product that you're launching. How exactly is this product solving the problem? How is this delivering value? And for who? So spend time with those people, charge for value, and keep on repeating these steps. And I think in that, somewhere you will realize that you've validated your idea, you've got a few paying customers and they're saying good things, and then you can think about going big or scalability, hiring a few more people. I think people just glamorize entrepreneurship too much, and they just lose the idea of starting from small. Like, for 2 years we were head down, struggling with a lot of things. It's only now that we have started to gain traction. We get interest from other parts of the world. We're trying to get into India, but all of that happens when you have a good product. If you don't have a good product, you can do any marketing in the world. That's not going to work, because at the end of the day, your users are going to pay for your product and not for the marketing. So work on that. That's going to help you in the long run.
Understood. So you mentioned about the product, how to refine it, and why it's more important than the marketing itself. So what's next for Capture the Bug and Security Lit,
Oh,
especially within the next 12 to 18 months? And what's next for you as an entrepreneur? Especially something which your followers would want to hear.
wow. I am actually looking forward to coming to India. So this is the craziest and the busiest part of the year for us, but I'm actually looking forward to spending time with my family. So I'm coming to India in December. So I've just got a few days left. But on serious front, for Capture the Bug, I guess the focus is on deepening our platform capabilities, and thinking about more automation where it makes sense, as I said, and workflows that are helpful for developers. Then we're speaking to a few big fours in Latin America. So again, don't want to say too much, but we're expanding further into ANZ and other uh, key global markets for Capture the Bug. Working with some um, high growth SaaS companies, not just in New Zealand, Australia, but in the US. We've got a few customers in the US, but we're just trying to expand that. So we've recently had someone join us who was ex Microsoft for more than 8 years as a senior product manager. And then again, continuing to prove that continuous agile pen testing isn't just a buzzword. It's a better way to manage risk. Yeah, and I think for personally me, I'm just looking forward to Christmas and spending time of the year with my family.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Miss Ankita, for taking out time for this uh, insightful conversation which we had. I'm truly inspired by your journey as a 21-year-old trying to build within cybersecurity. And I'm sure this podcast will really inspire and motivate a lot of individuals who would be watching your insightful conversation. So, once
Yeah,
again, thank you so much.
thank you so much for having me, Shikhar, and I wish you all the very best. But I think be authentic, be yourself. Like, don't try and be someone else. I know it's easy when you see a lot of the founders who are, you know, whatever that is that you're seeing on LinkedIn or Instagram. It's what you're experiencing and what you're saying, there's a huge difference. Like the real and the real world is always different. So I think just appreciate what you have, be yourself, and always try to be as authentic, as honest with people, um, at least that you need help from. And that would be my last advice for anyone who's listening to this. But thank you so much for having me.